Hello and welcome to Raus IAS. This is the Daily News Simplified for the date 21 November 2023. So for today's discussion, we have picked three themes for prelims discussion and three themes for mains discussion. And at the end of this session, we are ready to pick up doubts. So if you have any doubts, you can post them in the comment section. Now, the topics for our today's discussion are listed on your screen. I will read it out. For prelims, we have framed a question on tantalum. The second question is on government expenditure on subsidies. Other question is regarding the powers of governor. And for the mains discussion, we will be discussing three important topics. The first of which is making sense of employment challenge. This was an important article which was present in the editorial section of The Hindu. Next, we will discuss a, an important article given in The Hindu which was regarding cancer healthcare expenditure and cancer care. And in this topic, we will discuss the prevalence of cancer and present challenges in India. Finally, we will discuss an important article regarding India-Australia relationships, which was in news regarding the 2+2 ministerial dialogue recently concluded. Now, let's begin our discussion for the day. The first prelims question for the day is inspired by this news article, which appeared on the page number 1 of Indian Express. Now, as per this news article, a team of researchers from the Indian Institute of Technology, Ropar, have discovered the presence of tantalum, which is a rare earth metal, and it has been found in the Satluj River in Punjab. So, in this article, you should know important facts about this material tantalum, and you should also know some facts regarding Satluj River. Okay. So, let's solve a question regarding this article. Now we know that UPSC asks questions regarding various elements in news or regarding new inventions or discoveries or new emerging technologies. In this theme, we have seen that in the year 2021, UPSC has asked a question on magnetite particles. Previously, UPSC has also asked question regarding carbon nanotubes. Okay, so now let's solve this practice question. The question says that consider the following statements with reference to tantalum. Now, the first statement is, it is a rare transition metal that is highly corrosion resistant. Now, this is a correct statement. The second statement says that the mineral is identified as a critical and strategic mineral by the Union Ministry of Mines. Now, this is also a correct statement. Now, let us understand or see some more facts about tantalum. Tantalum is a transition metal, or simply you can say tantalum is a rare metal with atomic number 73, and as a metal it is hard and it is a blue gray in appearance, and it is lustrous. It contains luster and it is highly corrosion resistant. Okay, and now this metal is solid at room temperature. And as this metal is highly reactive, it is not found in free form in nature. Rather, it is found in form of alloys in some ores. Okay. Now, there are few important properties of tantalum because of which it becomes important. And now, previously in our statement, we discussed that this metal has been identified as one of the 12 critical and strategic minerals by the Ministry of Mines. Now, why is this? Because this is an important metal because of two important characteristics. The first is its corrosion resistance. It is resistant by its actions. It is resistant. That is, it is corrosion resistance. Many acids, it does not react with many acids. And secondly, this metal has a high melting point. Okay, and because of which it is suitable for various applications. The first application of this metal is in electronic components. So this is used as capacitors in various devices like mobile phones, computers, and various other gadgets. It is also used in various semiconductor materials. Secondly, it is used in medical devices. As it is non-corrosive, that's why it is used as medical implants. it is used as implants in various, as bone implants and in various surgical instruments because it is non-corrosive. Secondly, because of these properties, it is also used to make various super alloys, and this is used in jet engines, gas turbines, and other high temperature applications. Further, because of these above two properties, this metal is also used in nuclear reactors and production of nuclear weapons. And because of this fact, this is identified as a critical and strategic mineral by the government of India. So these are few facts which you should remember regarding this material. And now, as the questions asked, which of the statement given above is or are correct? The correct answer is both 1 and 2. Now let's move on to our next topic for the day. Now our next prelims question is inspired by this topic which appeared on the page number 14 of The Hindu. Now, as per this article, the Goldman Sachs has released a report which says that because of the 2024 Lok Sabha elections, the India's spending on subsidies will increase because of the upcoming Lok Sabha elections. Generally, it is a trend that whenever elections are there, the government spends money more on subsidies, right? And now, based on this, let's solve another question for the day. Now, why we have taken this question is that in previous years also, we have seen questions regarding the pattern of government expenditure, or the questions have been asked from economic survey or the budget document by the country, right? As in previous year 2025, as in the previous year 2015, we found this question. Now, let's solve this practice question which says that with reference to the expenditures of the union government, consider the following statements. Now, the first statement says that outlays on subsidies were larger than expenditures on centrally sponsored schemes in the budget of 2023-24. Now, this is an incorrect statement. Now, let's see why this statement is incorrect. Now, this pie chart is for your general understanding. Now, this pie chart shows that the income of the government. If the income of the government is ₹1, now what are the various sources for the government income? The major chunk for the government income comes from the borrowing and other liabilities of the government. Secondly, government gains money from GST and other taxes. Government also gains money from corporation tax and income tax, and besides which there are other sources of government income. Now, after it, what are the sources for government expenditure? Now, if we see, if government spends ₹1, where does government spend? What is the major chunk? So we can say that the major chunk is spent in interest payments, and there are other expenditures like state shares of taxes and duties. Now, in this pie chart, if we see that the expenditure of the government in subsidies, and if we see the expenditure of the government in centrally sponsored scheme, we see that the government expenditure in centrally sponsored scheme is ₹9, which is more than the government expenditure in subsidies. So, our statement is incorrect, as the government expenditure on centrally sponsored schemes is larger than that of subsidies. Okay. Now let's see our second statement, which says that fertilizer subsidy is the largest component of government subsidy outlays in the budget of 2023-2024. Now, if we see the budget of 2023-2024, currently we have only budget estimates. But if we generally see the trends of previous budgets, if we see the budget estimates, also if we see the revised estimates in the previous budget, we see a trend that these are the values, these are the items listed under subsidies. Government gives subsidies as fertilizer subsidy, food subsidy, and petroleum subsidy. So we see that the share of food subsidy is always higher than the share of fertilizer subsidy, right? So that's why this statement becomes incorrect, as food subsidy is the largest component of government subsidy outlays in the budget of 2023-24, right? Now, as this question asked, which of the statement given above is or are correct? The answer would be option D, neither one nor two. Now, let's move on to our final prelims question, which is inspired by this news article which appeared on the page number 13 of Indian Express. Now this news is appearing on the newspapers pretty common and pretty frequently. This is regarding the ongoing tussle which is ongoing between the governors of a state to that of the state legislature, right? And in this perspective, we should know that what are parliamentary proceedings and what are the powers of legislatures, what are the powers of executives, okay? As UPSC in the previous years has been asking questions regarding this particular theme, regarding the parliamentary proceedings and powers of various functionaries, right? As we can see, the example of this previous year question in the year 2019. Now let us solve our practice question for the day, which says that with reference to the office of governor of a state in India, consider the following statements. Now the statement 1 is, the constitution provides a time frame for the return of bill by the governor to the state legislature in case of a reconsideration. Now this is an incorrect statement. Let's see why. Now see what happens. Whenever a bill is passed by the state legislature, it is presented to the governor of that state. Now the governor of that state has four options. The first option is to grant assent to the bill. The second option he has is to withhold his assent to the bill. The third option he has to return the bill to the state legislature for reconsideration. Okay, and the fourth option is to reserve the bill for the consideration of the president. Now, what is the present controversy all about? It is regarding that the governor is sitting indefinitely on the bills which are presented to him by the state legislature. That is, he is sitting on these bills for many years together, and it is not returning the bills and it is not returning the bills to the state legislature for reconsideration. Now, why so? Because there is not a proper timeline in which the governor should return this bill to the state legislature. There is no fixed line for it. There is no fixed timeline for it. So our statement which says that constitution provides a time frame or a timeline for the return of bill by the governor to the state legislature in case of reconsideration, it would be wrong, as there is no fixed timeline, and this is the drawback and this is the reason of tussle between the state governors and state legislature. Now the second statement says that when a bill is reserved by the governor for consideration of the president and bill is so returned, it shall be presented to the governor for consideration with or without making necessary changes within 6 months. Now this is an incorrect statement. Why? Because we saw that the governor can reserve the bill for consideration of the president, right? And in this case, when the governor has reserved the bill for consideration of the president, then in that case, governor has no power to give assent or to withdraw the assent from the bill. Now it is the power of the president, right? So the correct answer would be the bill should be presented to the President of India, not governor, for consideration with or without making necessary changes within 6 months. So this should be the correct statement, and hence our previous statement is incorrect. Now let's see the third statement. The third statement says that the governor can act on his discretion while recommending for president's rule in a state. Now this is a correct statement, as the governor can act on his discretion if he recommends for presidential rule in his state. Now as the question asked, which of the statements given above is or are correct, the correct answer would be option D, 3 only. Now we have seen our questions, our prelims questions. Let us move to the mains articles for the day. The first mains article for the day is taken from this article, which appeared on the editorial section of The Hindu in the page number 6. Now, this news article says that making sense of the employment challenge. Now, now this article, now let's see what is the context of this news article. Now, previously, uh, there was a controversial remark by the Infosys founder, and he said that the workers of India should work for 70 hours in a week, right? And this is why, if the workers of India are going to work for 70 hours in a week, then this is necessary for the economic growth of the country. Now, why he said so? He said so because he cited the example of Germany and Japan. That post World War II, what happened is that the workers of those countries worked for longer hour duration, and because of which in 1950s the countries saw economic growth, tremendous economic growth, and he applied this reasoning in India. But this statement did not go well with many people in India, and this author of this article says that mere increasing the work hours of the country are not sufficient for economic growth of any country, right? For economic growth of a country, there should be rise in aggregate demand in the country. The author says that the rise in aggregate demand in the country is necessary for economic growth of any country, right? And these are the key, and this is based on Keynesian model. We will discuss this shortly. Now, why this article is important for you? This is important for our GS paper 3 economic development. Under the syllabus head, Indian economy and issues relating to planning, mobilization of resources, growth, development, and employment, right? Now, let's understand why this author said that the rise in aggregate demand is going to increase the economic growth of any country, and in turn this is also going to increase the employment in the country, right? So, regarding this theme of employment, or regarding this broader theme, UPSC has asked questions. As in the year 2023, in this year only, we saw a question which was regarding that most of the unemployment in India is structural in nature, and rather, and in the year 2022 also, we found a question in this theme which was regarding economic growth in the recent past has been led by increase in labor activity. So you can read these questions, and these questions are related to what we are going to discuss today. So, Keynesian economics. This is a school of thought which is named after a British economist, John Keynes. He was a British economist, based of which there is a school of thought which says that consumption, the school of thought says that the consumption in any economy is necessary to increase the economic growth of any economy. Now, what do we mean by consumption? Consumption means the net aggregate demand, or the demand in goods and services. Now, what will happen is that if the aggregate demand in goods and services in any country increases, as per the school of thought, then the economic growth of that country will increase. How? Because the net output will increase. Okay. And because of which the net employment will increase. So, this demand. So, in order, so what do we need is to increase this aggregate demand. And if the demand increases, then in turn the output will increase, and in turn the employment in the country would increase, right? So, the demand or employment in the country means the demand for labor, and thus the demand for labor is a function of this aggregate demand, right? And now, other thing what is said in this school of thought is that in case The school of thought talks about government intervention if there is a need, government intervention if there is a need to spur the economic growth of any country. For example, in the case of COVID pandemic, we saw that the economic growth of the country declined or there was a slowdown like conditions, right? And in that case, the school of thought say that in the case when there is an economic slowdown, the government has to increase spending, right? And government has to decrease taxes, right? And because of which there will be increase in the spending or increase in net income, net disposable income with the population, and vice versa. If the economic growth of a country, or vice versa, if the economy of the country is expanding, or if there is a high inflation, at that time the government should lower its lower its spending. Okay, spending should be lowered, and at the same time the taxes should be increased, right? These are what are the basic tenets of this school of thought. Now we understood that what is the main principal idea behind this article. Now let's analyze that what are the reasons. Shortly we have seen that there is high cases of unemployment in the country, and this is partly also because there is fall in demand for goods and services in the country. Now let's analyze that what are the reasons behind this scenario. We will see the reasons for fall in demand in the country. The first issue is a structural issue. Now the structure of Indian economy is like agriculture, which presently employs 45% of the workforce of the country, contributes to over 16% of India's GDP. Safely we can say around 17 to 18% of Indian GDP it comes from agriculture. But in the same time, agriculture employs around 45% of Indian workforce, right? And service sector, which contributes to over 55% of India's GDP, but it only employs around 16% of Indian population. Now, what do we see is that the vast majority of Indian population is employed in agriculture, right? But agriculture, by being employed in agriculture sector, they have very small disposable income. Okay, so there was a data by NSO, and this data says that this was a data for the year 2018-2019, and as per this data, the average monthly income of any agricultural household in India is just rupees 10,218. That is just over 10,000 rupees is the annual monthly income of the vast majority of Indian population, right? And because of this, what happens is that they have small disposable income, and because of which, as income is low, that's why the demand is low, right? And as per this article, if demand is low, then this will lead to lower economic growth and lower employability, right? So this is one of the reasons for fall in demand in India because of the structural issue. Okay. Now the second factor is informalization of Indian workforce. Okay. Now as per the periodic labor force data of the year 2018-2019, the periodic labor force survey said that 90% of Indian workforce is employed in informal institutions, in informal sector rather, I would say. And because of which, what happens is that in informal sector there are lower wages and lower job security, or lower social security net or social security benefits. And because of which, what happens is that again they have lower income, lower disposable income, and this is also one of the reason why demand is low. And because they are not covered or insured under social security benefits, their major expenditure would also be on healthcare services, and this would drain their resources, or this will result in out of pocket expenditure. Okay, and this would also lead to a lower disposable income with this majority of Indian informal sector, right? Indian population, majority of Indian majority of Indian population, which is engaged in informal sector, right? The other factor is income inequality. Now, as we know that the income parity in the country is increasing. The rich people are becoming more richer, and the poor people the income of poor people is not increasing at the same level, right? Now, as per the data of World Inequality Database, the share of top 1% income earners in the country, it increased from 10% in 1983 to 21% in 2013. So we can see that in these years, in these 20 years, there was a stark increase in the income of this top 1% income earners in the country. But if we see the income of bottom 50% of earners in India, their income decreased from 22% to 15% in this specific period. Now, this also shows that because of this sharp income inequality in the country, they don't have net disposable income, and which translates to lower demand, right? Another issue is global inflation and food inflation. As we know that there are higher trends of inflation currently in the country regarding food inflation and retail inflation, and rather we can say food inflation. And because of which what happens is that the major expenditure of the middle income or the lower income categories in India is on food, fuel, and various other daily use products. And because of which they don't have enough money to buy other goods and services, and because of which what happens again, the demand for other goods and services apart from food fuel and other expenditure decreases, and this is also a reason for fall in demand in the country. An other important aspect is that there is a principle which now the companies are adopting is just in time supply chain strategy. Now, in this strategy, what happens is that the manufacturing firms are not holding large inventory. They are only holding enough or low minimal levels of inventory of materials. And because of this, what happens that they don't employ a large number of population. They only employ a right number of population which is required for a particular period. For example, in the COVID-19 pandemic, there was huge surge in the services sector, and because of which there was higher demand for software engineers in leading firms like Google, Amazon. But as you see that the effects of pandemic have little bit normalized, and in this year, in the starting of this year 2023 in January, we saw massive layoffs in Google and Amazon because they followed this principle, which was just in time supply chain strategy, to balance out the initial hiring they did, right? And this would also lead to lower demand, right? Because not enough people are employed. And now finally we can see that there is low labor productivity in the country. And now why it is? Because of poor infrastructure in the country, and because of poor infrastructure, that is the minimal use of machines, advanced machines, and also we can say poor health infrastructure in the country, right? And because of poor health infrastructure, the health of these labors or the labor force declines. If the health of these labor force declines, this impacts their earning potential, or their time is lost in in providing healthcare services, and it also drains their money, right? And so we can say because of poor physical and healthcare infrastructure, also because of poor skills. Because of poor skills, there is a low labor productivity in India. In turn, they would get lower wages, and in turn, this will translate to lower demand. So these are the major factors which which contribute to fall in demand in the country. And as we saw previously in the article, that aggregate demand is necessary for economic growth, right? Now let's see what is the way forward in this regard. The way forward is that all we need is to increase the aggregate demand. Now, how can this be done? The first measure would be to tap the global markets. If you, this is the goods and services of India should be made globally competitive such that the demands for Indian goods and services is more in other countries, and that's why we can export more, and this would increase the demand, right, net demand, or this would spur the economic growth of the country. The first thing is to tap global markets or to tap the market outside the country. The second measure is by expansion of skill sets of workers to boost their productivity. And why this is necessary? This skill sets is also necessary to make our goods and services globally competitive. Apart from increasing their own productivity, and because of these two measures, this will translate to greater productivity and greater economic development, right? Other other measure is to invest in domestic infrastructure to boost competitiveness of goods and services produced in India. That is again to build enough physical infrastructure, digital infrastructure, and to build enough health infrastructure in order that the productivity of the workforce increases, and in order the Indian goods become more competitive in terms of their prices and in terms of their quality. Okay. Now the other thing is by controlling food inflation. Now, if the food inflation is controlled, the mid income and lower income families of India would save enough money, and this enough money they can utilize it to buy other goods and services, right? And how this food inflation could be controlled? By reducing food wastage, by raising the productivity of labor, and by infusion of technology in agricultural sector, or by infusion of capital in this sector, and by other such innovative measures, food inflation, or the cost of production of food, or the cost of food production, food collection, food distribution could be lowered, and because of which the trends of food inflation could be controlled, and this would be a helpful way in order to ensure enough money with the population of the country, so that the aggregate demand for other goods and services increase. The other measure would be by increasing the income of the bottom of the pyramid, that is the bottom 50% of the country. The incomes of these vulnerable populations should be increased. This can be done by increasing their minimum wages in the informal sector in which they are employed, or it can be done by linking the Manrega wages of Manrega workers to minimum wages. Currently, the Manrega wages in the country are lower than the minimum wages threshold, right? And then the Manrega wages should be increased to reach to minimum wage threshold, and this will expand their income, and thus this will ultimately increase the demand. Also, by bringing more workers to formal economy, or by greater formalization of the economy, right? And also finally, there can be public expenditure, uh, there can be increased in the government expenditure, as we saw earlier, that in order to spur the economic growth, government should invest more money, right, spend more money, and uh, this will have mm, this will have an impact, domino effect. We would say that this would have a domino effect, that government, by spending a little amount of money, government can spur the economic growth of various sections, right? So this was the essence of this article, and this was the discussion. I hope you understood this article. Now let's move on to the second mains article for the day. This is inspired by this article which appeared on the page number 9 of The Hindu. Now this article says that how free cancer care alone won't help the fight against cancer in India. Basically this article consists that there is cancer, the incidence of cancer is increasing in the country, as we all know, and because the incidence of cancer is increasing, it has hit more. It is hitting the population of all income strata, but the population of low vulnerable families are being hit more because of rise of cancer cases. But as the cancer cases are increasing in the same, but the screening facilities or the diagnosing facilities for cancer treatment in the country are not increasing in the similar fashion, right? Also, because of this expenditure, because of this cancer treatment, there is a large out of pocket expenditure to the vulnerable families in the country, right? So this is all about the out of pocket expenditure, how it is incurring, right? Now, this article is important for our GS paper 2 social justice. Under the syllabus head, issues relating to the development and management of social sector or services related to health, education, and human resources, right? So let's discuss this article. So in previous years, we saw that from the health segment in social justice GS paper 2, we found these questions. In the year 2021, we found a question which said that besides being a moral imperative of welfare state, primary health structure is a necessary precondition for sustainable development. In year 2015, we saw a question which was regarding the limitations in public health system in providing universal health coverage, right? Now let us discuss this. Let us discuss this article. Now first let's discuss what is cancer. Now cancer is a condition which is characterized by uncontrolled growth and dissemination of certain cells within the body. So what happens is that in normal condition, what happens? Cells, we have cells which are the functional unit of our body, right? And cells have a particular time span, and after which they die and new cells take their place, right? So this is in normal conditions, that cells by the process of cell division, new cells are produced and the older cells die. Okay, but what happens is that when there is certain mutations in certain genetic mutation, or we can say there is a mutation in the DNA of an individual, then what will happen? There would be mutation in DNA of an organism or genetic mutation, because of which the cells in the body will not die, right? And they will multiply in an uncontrollable number, because the body is not able to eliminate these cells, right? And because the body is not able to eliminate these cells, they will become toxic, right? And they will become, we can say, cancerous. And these cells multiply uncontrollably, okay? And which in turns lead to tremendous cell growth. This can result in tumors, and some of the tumors may not be cancerous, but many of these tumors are cancerous, and this would result in cancer, okay? So cancer arises due to genetic mutation or mutation in the DNA of the body, right? And cancer has become a lifestyle disease now. Earlier, which was rare, but now it has become a lifestyle disease. Now let's see what are the causes of cancer. It is generally found that around 5% of the cancer which occurs in the population is caused due to genetic factors. Genetic factors means it is passed on from family tree. Generally, the example of such kind of cancer is breast cancer, there is a high possibility of passing on breast cancer from genetic line, right? But the other kind of cancers, say 95% of the cancers are caused due to environmental factors and due to lifestyle choices, right? So let's understand what are the causes of cancers. The first causes is the first cause is genetic factors or inherited mutations. That is, the mutations in the DNA are inherited through the family line, right? And because of which these mutations can be present in the genes which are involved in cell growth, DNA repair, and tumor suppression, and because of which this can culminate into cancer, right? The first factor is genetic mutation or genetic factor, inherited mutation, and this is responsible for 5% of the cancers. Rather rather the 95% of the cancer arises due to environmental exposure. How? Through the exposure of carcinogens. Carcinogens are cancer causing compounds. And what are these cancer causing compounds? They may be chemicals, they may be pollutants, or it may be radiation, right? radiations from medical devices like X-rays or any other kind of ionizing radiation, right? And the chemicals, certain chemicals, there are various chemicals or industrial pollutants. Some examples may be benzene, asbestos, formaldehyde, radon, and various other chemicals, industrial chemicals, right? And if we talk about lifestyle choices, what are the lifestyle choices that lead to cancer? The first and the most important and the major factor is the uses of tobacco. And because of the use of tobacco or nicotine, the population is vulnerable to lung, mouth, throat, and pancreatic cancer. And the other important factor is dietary habit. Because of consumption of highly processed foods, basically processed meats, and the meat and the food which is deviant in fruits and vegetables, or which is low in fibers, and by the high uses of processed food, there are high chances of genetic mutation, and this can lead to cancer, right? Another important factor is consumption of alcohol. And because of same reasons, the consumption of alcohol is related to the cancer of liver, breast, and other esophageal and other cancers, right? And other important reason is sedentary lifestyle or the lack of physical activity, and because of which there is an increased risk of several types of cancer, including breast cancer and colon cancer, right? Apart from these all reasons, cancer can also be due to some kind of viral infections and certain viruses like human papilloma virus. This is responsible for vaginal or penile cancer, and this is a certain kind of virus which can cause cervical cancer also. And there are certain other diseases like hepatitis B and hepatitis C, and these viruses can also be responsible for causing cancer, right? And lastly, radiation exposure, which we saw earlier also, that exposure to certain ionizing radiation, say radiation from X-ray machines, this are this can cause cancer, okay? Mutation in the DNA or mutation in the genes, right? Now these are the leading causes of cancers. Now let us discuss what is the incidence of cancer in the country, or what is the burden of this disease in the country, right? In the year 2022, WHO released a ranking of cancer burden, and in this ranking, India ranked third. And the first position was shared by China and US, after which India was third in the terms of new yearly cancer cases. Every year, around 14 lakhs. Every year, around 14 lakhs new cases of cancers are arising in the country. So, in the terms of new cancer cases added every year, India is placed at the third number, right? And this is the data by ICMR, Indian Council of Medical Research, and this data said that this is the incident. In the left hand side, we can see the incidence, the cases of cancer. The cases of the freshly added cases of cancer in the year 2021 were around 14.26 lakh. And in the year 2022, the freshly added cases of cancer increased, and they were around 14.61 lakh. You don't need to remember these numbers, but you just need to follow the trend that the cancer cases are increasing every year. This may also be because of increased diagnostic facilities in the country, or the increased level of awareness in the people, and it is also because of other lifestyle and environmental pollutants, okay? And it is estimated that by the year 2025, annually India will add around 15.69 lakh cases of cancer per year, right? And this is just an assumptive data. The numbers may be 2 or 3 times more than the actual numbers, right? And the right hand side list shows the number of death or the mortality data due to cancer, and the death due to cancer is also increasing, right? And if we see that the incidence of cancer among women is more as compared the incidence of cancer to the males, right? That is, the incidence of cancer in female has become more common as compared to those with males. And what are the common sites of cancer in males? in males, the common areas in which they can be infected are lungs, mouth, prostate, tongue, and stomach. And women can be infected in breast, cervix, ovary, uterus, and lungs. Right. So these are some common. These are some. So this is a basic data regarding the disease burden, regarding the cancer burden in the country. Now, in order to annihilate these cancer incidents, government has followed certain initiatives, rolled out certain initiatives. As early in the year 1975, the government launched National Cancer Control Program, and this was a program for the prevention, early detection, diagnosis, treatment, palliative care, and rehabilitation of cancer. Right, and later, government launched National Program for Prevention and Control of Cancer, Diabetes, Cardiovascular Diseases, and Stroke. This was launched in the year 2010 under the National Health Mission. Okay, government launched this scheme, and the original National Cancer Control Program was merged with this new scheme, right? And basically, this was a new scheme which covered various non-communicable diseases, right? And these are major non-communicable diseases in the country, which are cancer, diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, and stroke. So this was an umbrella scheme which comprised all these diseases, right? And its focus, among other diseases, was to prevent and control cancer, and and uh, and to do this, it aimed to strengthen the infrastructure by developing more health and wellness centers, by developing more state cancer institutes and tertiary cancer care centers in the country. That is by increasing the cancer care centers in the country, right? And by the human resource development, by inducting more people in the department of oncology, by doing more research in the cancer treatment and prevention and health promotion, and by early diagnosis, management, referral, and awareness, right? So this is an important scheme which the government has rolled out in the year 2010. Okay. Apart from this, India has a national cancer registry program. Now, this was launched in the year 1982, and this is a registry of all the cancer patients, right? So, in this, what happens is that ICMR, it collects and maintains data or on cancer incidents to understand the pattern of this disease, right? And to plan the effective interventions. To understand the pattern and then plan effective interventions. Like what are the states, what are the regions where cancer is prevalent, or what is the population group, or what is the community. Some kind of data, some kind of database, or regarding the registry or the incident of data. This is a cancer registry program for it. And now there is a national cancer grid. India has a national cancer grid, which is a network of major cancer centers. This is to standardize cancer care and share best practices, right? And also, recently government has opened a National Cancer Institute at Jhajjar, Haryana. This is a center of excellence, and it aims to strengthen cancer care and research in the country. Also, under the Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, cancer treatment is being provided to 10 lakh vulnerable families, right? To around 100 crore peoples, to around 50 crore peoples, or to the 10 lakh families. Ayushman Bharat Jan Arogya Yojana provides cancer treatment, right? Now, note this point. I said cancer treatment, right? Now, despite the government initiatives, there are certain challenges. Now, let's see what are the challenges which were mentioned in this article. The first challenge is that there is inadequate healthcare infrastructure in the country regarding cancer detection and cancer treatment. Now, see, for any disease, there are 3 steps, 3 legs. The first leg is detection of this disease or diagnosis of that disease. The second leg is treatment of that disease, and the third leg is follow up. Okay, follow up after the disease. Now, in India, what happens is that all the 3 legs of this of cancer prevention are impacted. Now, especially, and this healthcare infrastructure is insufficient, particularly in rural and remote areas of the country, right? Now, this can be seen from the fact that in India has around 1,17,000 health and wellness centers. Okay, these are the primary focal point for cancer screening, right? These health and wellness centers are too low as compared to the targeted 1,50,000 health and wellness centers in the country. So we can say that there is lack of health and wellness centers or the primary point of contact for screening cancer, right? The second thing is that there is low rate of information. We can say awareness. The awareness in the population regarding how cancer happens, right? And also the awareness that they have to screen cancers, or these are the facilities which the government has provided regarding cancer screening, and the what are the methods how to examine cancer at home for certain types of cancers, or self practicing. So there is a lower level of awareness in the country, right? Also, if we talk about the female ANMs or nurse or midwives, there is a shortage of these nurses at health and wellness centers, and because of which women patient may be uncomfortable in reporting to these health and wellness centers, right? Also, we can say that the comprehensive cancer centers, they are available in only 175 districts in the country. And see the poor state that India has more than 600 districts, and these comprehensive cancer centers are only available in 175 districts. That there is not one center per district also, and one comprehensive cancer center is covering a population of 3 million or 30 lakh. So this reflects the inadequate health infrastructure, right? Also, there is a low penetration of the cancer treatment facilities. The primary cancer treatment facility is like radiotherapy and some other therapies also, like PET scan and some other therapies. There is a lower penetration or lower infrastructure regarding these treatment facilities in the country. Okay, you can see this data which is written here. The other thing is that first thing is health infrastructure, poor health infrastructure. The second thing is that there is lack of coverage or inclusion of screening. Okay, inclusion of screening of cancer. Earlier we saw that cancer treatment is available under the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. Okay, but cancer diagnosis or cancer screening is currently not included in Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. Now see what will happen that if a person is not diagnosed, if a poor person, due to absence of these facilities, would not afford to go to a private clinic for diagnosis and screening, and if he goes to a private clinic for it, he will have a lot of out of pocket expenditure. Out of pocket expenditure means expenditure in terms of medical consultation, OPD consultation, in terms of medicines. Okay, it can also include the expenditure in terms of transportation and living expenses of a caregiver. So in absence of screening, in absence of inclusion of screening in Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, what happens is that people, the first line of treatment is screening, and the person is not able to do this, right? So only when a person is diagnosed by cancer, then only he will come to treatment, right? And this treatment has also a limit of 5 lakh per family, right? And this limit is way lower as compared to the cost surge which comes after the cancer onset of cancer, okay, or in the cancer treatment. Now other thing is that implementation issues. Despite India has this scheme regarding the prevention of non-communicable diseases, right, regarding cancer, but there is a lack of adequate workforce, technology or equipment for proper implementation of this scheme. The doctor, the oncologist to the patient ratio is also very poor in the country, right? And majorly the district health centers, they have not implemented this scheme, and they did not implement this scheme as per the data available of the year 2017-2018, right? And another important thing is that there are some public hospitals or private hospitals which are impaled to treat cancer, right? But this cost of this cancer treatment is shared by central government and state government. There is a fund sharing ratio, but these private and public hospitals are not reimbursed that fund, because of which what happens is that these hospitals are not able to bear the expenses, and they forcibly have to terminate the treatment of this patient and they do not take new patient because their dues or their bills are not cleared by the state government and central government, right? Finally, there is a lack of insurance coverage for critical diseases in the country. In the major private insurance programs or in the major state and central government insurance programs, there is a lack of coverage, or if even there is a coverage, there is not for the proper three-tier treatment, screening treatment and out of patient and other follow-up treatments, but it is only for some certain aspects, right? And because of this lack of insurance coverage, people are not protected, right? We are running out of time. Let us speed up. Now, so what is the way forward in this regard? The first and foremost thing is that there should be a proper budgetary allocation, right? As we saw earlier, that the hospitals are not getting funds to clear their bills, right? So there should be adequate focus and budget allocation for cancer detection. Now, earlier we saw that there was a separate scheme for cancer, but later it was merged with other schemes like cardiovascular detection and some other schemes, other non-communicable diseases, right? But instead, there should be a separate and dedicated scheme for cancer, which is the second number of killer in the country. The first number of the first disease which kills many people in the country in India is cardiovascular disease, and the second disease is cancer, right? So because of its importance, there should be a separate scheme that deals with cancer detection and cancer treatment. Okay. The second measure would be that the state government should encourage the central government should encourage the state government to adequately establish the health and wellness centers. That is to ensure proper infrastructure, proper equipment, proper doctors, and proper ANMs and junior staffs in their health and wellness centers, and to improve the infrastructure by creation of more health and wellness centers, right? Other thing is to deploy female ANF, that is nursing and midwife staff at each health and wellness center so that women are comfortable to visit these hospitals for their cancer screening, right? And the government should partner with the state government and other private institutions under the PPP model to improve the infrastructural coverage, which could and to also increase the screening and infrastructure, cancer treatment infrastructure coverage, right? And the various types of necessary diagnostic tests which should be placed under Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. Presently, as I told you that diagnosis is not included in Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, it should be added under this Yojana, right? For timely detection of cancer and for timely treatment, right? And there should be a greater focus on the awareness campaign to improve the cancer mortality rate, right? And there should be, and as we know that India has an indigenous human papilloma virus vaccine, Sarvavac. So there should be a mass vaccination drive, like there was a mass vaccination drive of COVID-19 vaccines or other vaccine. There should be a mass vaccination drive of Sarvavac vaccine, as cervical cancers are becoming more common. And also technologies can be leveraged, as we saw that government has a cancer registry. Now, in order that the data in this registry is accurate, government can use big data and artificial intelligence to create a comprehensive database, a comprehensive online health registry, such that the genetics of any person could be known, and the AI could predict that if any cancer incidence can be found in this person based on the location where he lives, based on the environmental pollutants, and based on the toxicity of the environment and based on the lifestyle choices the person has, right? Based on genetic factors, these all factors, and AI can predict the occurrence of cancer, and then the person can timely screen for the detection of cancer, right? Lastly, there should be low cost innovation for affordable healthcare. Okay, so these are the major points which can be major way forward, which can be adopted to decrease the cancer mortality in the country, right? Now let us move on to our final article for the day, which is regarding these two news articles which appeared in Indian Express also, and this news article appeared in The Hindu also, right? The context of this article is that yesterday India Australia 2+2 ministerial dialogue had concluded, right? And now this is important for our GS paper 2 international relations. Okay, regarding various bilateral, regionals, and global groupings. Okay. So you can see UPSC has previously asked questions regarding various international forums and regarding various international relations, various bilateral relations, right? Now, let's first understand what is a 2+2 dialogue. Now, 2+2 dialogue is a diplomatic summit which is held between 2+2, right? It is held between the foreign minister and the defense minister of a country with the foreign minister and defense minister of other country. That is, these four people have a diplomatic dialogue, right? And what is the aim of this diplomatic dialogue? This is to enhance domestic cooperation, to strengthen defense collaboration, to deepen economic engagement, and to advance regional and global cooperation regarding various areas of importance to these countries, right? And now, presently, yesterday India held 2+2 dialogue with Australia. Apart from it, India also conducts 2+2 dialogue with United States, United Kingdom, Australia, Japan, Russia. Okay, so this is the 2+2 dialogue. This is about 2+2 dialogue, right? Now, in the basis on the background of this news, let us understand the bilateral relations. Quickly see the bilateral relations between India and Australia. Now we see that the bilateral relations between India and Australia are established from as far since 1940s, right? And these are founded on the shared values of pluralistic democracies, right? And the Commonwealth traditions between these two countries, and these are basically based on deepening the economic collaborations between these two countries and by high level engagement in the Indo-Pacific region. So in short, if I want to say, the diplomatic relations between India and Australia are based on some important factors. These are the economic relations between these two countries, the strategic position of India and Australia in the Indo-Pacific regions, and based of which the two countries become important for each other regarding the safety and security of Indo-Pacific region, right? And these are also based on defense agreements or defense engagement between these two countries. Okay, so apart from people to people interactions and educational and investment in other factors, these are the primary factors based on which, primary pillars based on which the relations between these two countries are formed, right? And now we can see that earlier, the relationship between these two countries, India had a strategic partnership with Australia in the year 2009. But in the year 2020, the bilateral relationship between these two countries were elevated and it became a comprehensive strategic partnership between these two countries, right? So let's see the basic aspects of relations between these two countries. The first thing, as I told you, the economic relations between these two countries, right? Now, in the year, as per the data from the previous year, in the year 2022, India was Australia's sixth largest trading partner. Okay, and the two-way goods and services trade between Australia and India were it crossed US dollar 31 billion in the year 2022. Okay, so by the year 2022, the economic trade, two-way economic trade in goods and services between these two countries were over around 31 US dollar 31 billion dollars, right? And to enhance the economic partnership between these two countries, the two countries has signed, this is important for you, economic cooperation trade agreement. This agreement was being long negotiated, but finally this agreement was signed between these two countries in the year 2022 and it came into implementation in the same year, right? And by the signing of this important by signing this important agreement between these two countries, the bilateral trade between the countries will increase further because there is a removal or there is a reduction of import duties. There is a removal of export duties between these two countries. That is the goods which are exported by India to Australia and the goods which are exported by Australia to India. The export duty on those goods will be goods on services has been significantly reduced. Goods and services, the export duty has been drastically reduced. There are numbers for it, but you don't need to remember it, right? And now other important factor is that now let's quickly see what are the major items of imports from India to Australia. What India exports to Australia is export, okay? What we export to Australia is petroleum, refined petroleum, right? Gems, leather, textiles. Basically, we export Australia finished products. And what do we import from Australia is raw material, right? And coal and copper. These are our important items which we import from Australia, right? And we export them petrochemicals, petroleum, refined petroleum, gems, leather, gemstones, and other things. Okay. And let's see the defense partnership between these two countries. The two countries, time and again, they conduct various defense exercises, various maritime exercises between these two countries. And for it, the countries have also signed a mutual logistics support agreement in the year 2022. And as per this agreement, the militaries of both the countries can use the ports, the naval bases, the air bases of the two countries for shipping purposes, for refueling purposes, or for security purposes, or in case there is any occurrence of war or any security threat. The two militaries can use these facilities of other countries, okay, as part of this agreement. And now let's move on to energy agreement, energy cooperation between these two countries. India and Australia signed a civil nuclear cooperation agreement in the year 2014. This is very important. And because of this agreement, India secures, or India can purchase uranium, right? Australian uranium. India can purchase, and India can purchase uranium from Australia for its civil purposes or to generate energy, right? And because of this agreement, Australia has turned to be a reliable partner from which India can purchase uranium. Okay. And finally, we can say that there is a strategic cooperation between these two countries. As we can say, these two countries are members of various international organizations and regional groupings. As we can see that these two countries are the part of Quad. Quad is a grouping. Quad is a grouping between USA, India, Japan, and Australia to counterbalance the presence of China in the Indo-Pacific region, right? And these two countries also participate in the G20 summits. Okay, these are the members of G20, Indian Ocean Rim Association, and East Asia Summit. Okay, these are the various regional fora, international forums in which these two countries are members. Okay, but apart from this, there are certain challenges in the ties between these two countries. There are some challenges only, not major challenges. Now let's understand what are these challenges. The first issue is dichotomous Australian foreign policy. This means that a confused foreign policy by Australia. Now, why this happens is that this is because Australia is dependent on trade with China, is dependent on its 40% of trade with China. Okay, it imports items from China, around 40%. And because of this, what happens is that in one hand, it is exporting, it is a major trading partner with China. But on the other hand, it has security concern. It has security concerns with China in the Indo-Pacific Ocean. Okay, in the Indo-Pacific region or in the Pacific Ocean, particularly because of China's expansion in the South China Sea. Okay, so in one hand, Australia has security concerns with the presence of China in the Pacific Ocean. Other hand, it is a major trade partner of China. So Australia, it becomes very difficult for the foreign policy of Australia to balance between these two priorities, right? So we can say that the Australia's foreign policy is bit confused. Okay, so it cannot take a clear stand, though it has taken some stands by its involvement in the AUKUS groupings, okay, and by backing India in some forums. But still, there is a dichotomy in the Australia's foreign policy. Okay, so these are the challenges. Other thing is that there is a comprehensive economic cooperation agreement, and which India has been long negotiating. Since 2011, India has been negotiating this trade agreement with Australia. Now earlier we saw that there was an economic cooperation trade agreement which was signed between these countries in 2022, right? But this agreement is presently focused only on goods and services. Okay, so it is not liberal in nature, and it is focused in only goods and services. But after a comprehensive economic cooperation agreement would be signed, it would focus on many other broader themes also, like apart from goods and services, it will also cater the economic property, the intellectual, sorry, the intellectual property rights, and many other things, right? So it would be a broader economic cooperation agreement, and these countries are negotiating it, and India is negotiating it with Australia. But what is the major constraint? The major constraint, there are some challenges to it, and one of the important challenges that the issue of agricultural tariffs in India. Now, what happens is that India has high tariffs on agricultural products which are imported from Australia. Australia basically a large industry based on dairy, okay, and dairy and agricultural products. But because India is primarily an agrarian economy, so to protect the interest of Indian farmers, there is a large import tariff. There is a large tariff on agricultural products from Australia, right? And because of which there is some kind of economic tussle between these countries, and because India has to protect the rights of Indian farmers. And if you remember this, this was one of the reasons why India withdrew from RCEP, Regional Cooperation Economic Partnership. Okay, this is a major free trade agreement between South Asian countries and other countries in the Indo-Pacific region, right? But because of this concern, India withdrew from RCEP. Okay, so these are the major these are the major aspects regarding the India Australia bilateral relationship. Now if you have any doubt, so this is the end of the session. Now if you have any doubt, i'm I'm checking the YouTube section, YouTube this video, this comment section. You can comment your doubts, right? I'm taking your doubts for next 2 minutes. These are the okay, I saw a doubt. Lala is asking that, ma'am, can you tell me something about different kinds of treatments of cancer? Okay, as we discussed the cancer topic, and okay, so presently the major line of treatment in the cancer for treating cancer in India is radiotherapy. The services offered are radiotherapy and chemotherapy, right? You must have heard these terms, radiotherapy, chemotherapy. And if we talk about the advanced therapies, there is a proton beam therapy, positron beam therapy, and also there is CAR T cell therapy. Okay, so CAR T cell therapy. Okay, so this employs the techniques of genetic modification in the cells of an individual, and treating it at a defense to improve the immunity, to activate the immunity in a person itself, to kill the cancer cells. Okay, so basically these are the advanced line like CAR T cell therapy and proton beam therapy. Otherwise, we have radiotherapy and chemotherapy, which are uh, comparatively less expensive as compared to proton beam therapy and CAR T cell therapy, right? But CAR T cell therapy and proton beam therapy are evolving phases of cancer treatment, and probably they would become more affordable as the time passes. And we can talk this more about in a science and technology section, and when we take these topics separately, right? दिख नहीं रहा मुझे कहाँ पे? Okay, Monu Tripathi asked, ma'am, are governors doing right in sitting over bills? No, as this is a clear cut question that the governor is not doing a not doing, this is not a right thing to sit over the bills, right? Because this is hurting the parliamentary democracy. Because the state legislators are chosen by us, right? It is a form of because we choose them, and on our behalf they are making bills, right? And if governor has other powers also, he can reject those bills. He can hand it over for reconsideration, but you cannot directly sit over those bills. So I don't think, and this is not a right way, right mechanism which is done by the governor. Uh, okay. Rupam Verma asked, many questions are coming from different newspapers only. Two will be sufficient. See, presently we do our best to take up all the possible news and all the possible segments from Indian Express and the Hindu. And if you follow these newspapers religiously, see what happens that almost all the newses are present in all the newspapers, right? And but what we do is a comprehensive research regarding all the factors, all the probable areas which you should know as compared to UPSC for your UPSC examination. So yeah, following the Hindu and Indian Express would be as in DNS would be sufficient. But if you are reading newspaper, you can follow any newspaper of your interest, either the Hindu or Indian Express, as all the newses are covered there sufficiently. Okay, that's all for today. I'll take a leave.